Hi guys and girls, Glad Keeper here. I've got another project for you today. Yesterday I picked up this Wacker Neuson compactor. I have one similar to it, older version, and this will be an upgrade. I transported it right in the back of my car. It's a Ford Edge, fit right in there, no problem. The motor that's on here, I believe it's a Honda GX 160. It was missing the pull start. Okay, this machine needs some work. And you know, I got into it right away. As soon as I brought it home, I pressure washed it. I took the top off so I could get all the gravel. There was a lot of gravel in this machine. Okay, let me just show you what's going on in here. You know, if you can see down into the spark plug there, there's like cement. They didn't take very good care of this unit. On the cooling fins of the motor, there's a lot of cement. So basically I'm going to have to tear this thing down and pretty much clean it all out, go through everything, and put it back together. You know, when I went to pick it up, the motor was actually a little bit freer. I was able to turn it over a few times. It had compression. I was told that the motor was no good. I don't even want to try to start this right now because I hear gravel. There's gravel everywhere. There's a little piece of gravel right here on top of the carburetor. There's gravel inside the shroud here, the fan cowl for the coolant fins. There was gravel everywhere on this machine. I believe what probably happened was it was used in trenches and construction. Maybe they were compacting footings, and they may have had a machine dropping gravel in while they were compacting, and you know, for some reason they missed the mark and the gravel landed on this machine. I've seen gravel. There was gravel in the muffler area here, so slowly but surely I'm kind of picking away at it, and we'll just kind of, you know, we'll figure out what's wrong with it as we go along. There's 4 bolts that hold the top of the machine down to the base. Other than that, there's just a hose for the water tank here that has to be disconnected. So I already took the 4 bolts out, and I cleaned out some of the gravel in there. I'll show you what's going on underneath this thing. Okay, so you can see this is pretty clean right now. It was filthy, okay? This is, I believe they call it the exciter. This is the actual counterweight that gives it the that thumping action, right? You can see it has your V pulley right here. Appears to be in good shape. I want to check the fluid on this before we put it back together. There was gravel. There was a ton of gravel down in this area right here. The belt was chewed up. The belt was broken on it. I'm going to take this part here off where the water comes down into, there's got a bunch of holes drilled in here. Some of the holes look like they clogged up, so I want to clean that out. Make sure. Alright, so I removed these 4 19mm screws that hold this pick bar down. There's 2 in the front here, 2 in the back, and there's also a couple of, I believe there's a 6mm Allen head screws that were in the front here as well, down in here, and then there's 2 in the back down here that I just loosened. So this should come out now. Looks like it's hitting the, it's like an exhaust diverter in the back of the muffler shroud here. So I may have to take that off as well. Okay, you can see I've got the water tank off here, and I'm going to pull the motor off as well. Down in here, it's all caked up. It's all gravel and cement, right? All caked in here. Like I said, it's inside the shroud. I got gravel in here. Who the hell knows where else I got gravel? So I got to clean this all out, try to get at the bolts so I can pull the motor off. Alright guys, so I'm taking the motor off now, and yeah, I finally got the 4 motor mounting bolts out. I don't know why they did this, but what they did was they used a 6mm Allen socket screw to hold them down, and I tried everything to get these bolts out. I even made I cut a piece of my Allen wrench, put it into a socket. I still couldn't get it in because of the curvature of the motor here. I couldn't get anything to fit down in there. So what I ended up doing was beating the crap out of these 2 bolts with a cold chisel. Okay? Here's a cold chisel that I use. If you're ever going to do that, what you want to do, obviously you're going to hit it on one side in the direction you want to go, which is counterclockwise, right? And you got to dig it in really good. Sharpen your cold chisel before you even start. Don't even try doing it with a dull chisel. I actually sharpened this twice, once for each bolt. And once you catch it good, now obviously I heated it up. I put PB Blaster in there. You know, I did all the stuff you're supposed to do. But you can't get them to break. But again, your cold chisel has to be extremely sharp, so you're cutting into this. You're going to destroy the bolt. You know, I could have drilled them out, but you know, this method here is a little bit easier than drilling. And finally, they broke. So now I'm going to take the motor off and start taking this apart to clean it out. Well, I gotta tell you, I don't think I've ever seen a motor this dirty before. This is a first for me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to close up all the openings on it. I'm going to close up, you know, the exhaust over here. I'll close up the carburetor over here, the fuel line inlet here. I'm just going to seal it all up, and I'm going to blast the shit out of this with the power washer. Alright, so everything's been power washed and cleaned up. The motor's in pretty good shape. All the fins clean to allow airflow to cool down the motor. And you know, what I did was just as a precaution, I took the plug out, and I also had the exhaust off. I took this rag out, and what I did was I put in an oil. It's kind of like WD-40. It's an oil and moisture remover. And just in case any water got in, I threw a little bit down the carburetor here as well, and hopefully there won't be any issues with that when I go to try to start this up. Alright, so after the cleaning, I let it dry. I masked off a couple of areas, and I'm just going to throw a base coat of paint on here. This is the base with the exciter. This has the counterweight, and this housing over here as well. What I did was I masked off the areas where, you know, there's threads, and so I won't have any problem putting the hardware back in. So I'm going to paint it up, make it look somewhat decent. This machine needed some rubber washers, and I just decided to make my own. I'm using a hole saw. I stapled down a piece of rubber here, and I got the outline. These things will start to twist up on you. Once I get the outline, what I'm going to do is just cut it out from there. Well, this was a piece of rubber roofing left over from a job, and what I'm doing is I'm just cutting around the outline that the hole saw left me, just like a template, except I couldn't cut a circle this perfect by hand, by eye. Has 1/4 inch hole, and that will slip right over the standoff here, and this is for the rubber. This is for the plastic water tank. So I'm just making a couple of washes rather than order them and wait a month of Sundays for them to come in. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the oil in the exciter. The exciter has either automatic transmission fluid or it has gear oil in it. I believe this particular model has ATF. I'm going to find that out before I fill this back up. There should be about 5 ounces of fluid in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the end bell off. This end bell here has the pulley on it. I'm going to take the other end bell off. It has 3 bolts on it. I'm going to take this end bell off by removing these 3 screws. I already soaked them in WD-40, and then I'm going to tap on it. This is retaining a bearing on the end here. So what I'm hoping to do is tap on this, remove this cap. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to move it 90 degrees so this is on the bottom, the pulley here is on the top, and I'm going to drain the oil right through the bearing. That's how they recommend you do it. Unfortunately, I already painted this before I went ahead and decided to change the oil on the exciter. I wasn't sure how many hours. It looked like a sealed unit. There was no drain on it or anything like that, so I thought maybe it was a longer lifespan for the oil. But they say it's 300 hours, and this is probably there right now. So I am going to change the oil on this. I might as well. I've got it all torn apart right now, right? So what I intend to do is pick. I'm going to use a chain on the 2 rubber mounts on this side here. I'm going to pick this up. It'll be up 90 degrees, and the oil is going to drain out this end here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this with a chain fall. This is the original hardware for mounting the top chassis to this bottom plate. What I did was I took the washers off so I could engage more threads on these rubber couplings. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick it from this point here. I just ran a bolt through here just so it doesn't slide back and forth on the chain while I have it up in the air. One thing my father instilled in me was always use the right tool for the job. So I've got this metric hex bit set with a 3/8 ratchet, 6mm Allen socket, and you want to make sure you bottomed in all the way, right? You want to make sure that any dirt. So I've got a little pick that I'm going to go in and make sure that this is all cleaned out good. Blow that out of there. Okay, so before I move this, what I want to do is I'm going to put a couple of hash marks. So I'll know I want to put it back the same way that it came off. I want to be able to align it, so that's going to help you to align it properly. Alright, so when you're removing an end bell, and I call it an end bell because it has a bearing on either end, okay, it's very similar to an electric motor. when you remove one of these end belts, what I like to do is I'll tap around with the hammer. Now right now all three of these bolts are loose. I actually seen it's actually separating from the case here a little bit, so I think it's going to come apart fairly easy. But what you don't want to do is get in with screwdrivers and try prying in between the two housings here. What you want to do is you might want to just hold the end belt and just start tapping it all the way around. You know, try moving it by hand to get it to come out. You don't want to jam it. You don't want to force it. If you force it, then you might end up breaking something. These are all machine surfaces in here, and if you mar it, you might end up with an oil leak. So I think at this point here, where I've already seen some separation, I'm going to start to pick this with my chain fall and get it ready, and I might not destroy the my new paint job here. If it does, no big deal. I'll just clean it up and paint fade over it again. But whenever you're picking something with a chain fall, you know, you want to make sure that it's straight up and down as much as possible. Otherwise, you could get a pendulum effect. When this leaves the ground surface, it could swing one way or the other. So you try to align it as much as you can, straight. Okay, so I need a little more clearance here, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 2x4 underneath it. Or a 2x3. Yeah, it's getting hung up there. Okay. All right, let's see where that's at. I'm going to drop it down just a little bit more. Right there. Yeah. Okay. So you can see, you got some. This actually smells like gear oil. This does not smell like transmission fluid to me. Although on second thought, it does have a little bit of an odor, transmission fluid. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wipe my hands of any oil. And we'll leave this like this for a while and let it all drain out. I'm going to have to drain this out separately. I'll get another container to let that sit in. I'm kind of glad that I did this. You can see, I'm hoping you can see, down in the oil, you can see where there's some metal. There's a little bit of metal showing there. You know, normal wear and tear. You get that sometimes, but you know, I guess I would highly recommend. After seeing what I see here, you know, I'm looking at this oil, right? It's not real dirty, but it definitely has some metal in it. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go wash my hands, because I did get this oil all over it, and you know, it will assimilate into your skin. It will absorb into your skin if you leave it on there. So I'm going to wash my hands off now. You know, one thing I could tell you about doing a job like this, okay, I've got a chain fall on a trolley, on an I-beam in my garage. I know not all of you have that. This plate is very heavy, right? And probably the most important thing Part of doing this is, you know, moving this this base plate around. Okay, it's very, very heavy. You know, what you might want to do is, you know, have a helper, have somebody helping you, have a come along. You know, again, these are a couple of pick points right here that work well for me. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't hold up the machine, although they are rubber isolators. You do need to get this thing straight up and down to get it to drain out. They recommend that you don't take the exciter off of the base plate. These bolts here are probably in here super tight. They probably got, you know, red Loctite on them or something. You'd have to heat it up to get them out. I think it might be more work. You might end up damaging something. So doing this maintenance here, you know, the way they recommend it is to do exactly what I did, was to take off the end bell opposite the pulley and drain out the oil that way. You can see inside here on the end bell, well, on the casting, there's your rubber O-ring right here. Okay, roller bearing on the inside, and you know, it's a little dirty. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you, right? You can see there's some dirt in there. You know, it's probably normal wear and tear, but what I'm going to do is clean this out as best I can, and then double check and triple check to make sure that I'm putting the right oil back inside this unit. It could be either transmission fluid or gear oil, one or the other. We got to make sure that's the right one. Although, you know, initially I thought, you know, it had the smell of gear oil. And then I smelled it again. I'm like, it actually does smell a little more like transmission fluid. So, but I don't want to take any chances with that. I'm going to find out. I'm going to run the numbers on it and find out for sure. Alright, so, you know, I cleaned up around the outside of the end bell here. I see there's a buildup of rust in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that little ridge off. I want to make sure that I don't get anything inside on these bearings here at all. This is when it pays to be a little bit proactive. And I'm going to be very careful not to get anything up into that area. So you can see there's a little ridge there that's coming off. This scraper is pretty sharp. You gotta make sure you don't gouge it. And I'll clean that up with a little bit of I've actually got a 3M abrasive pad that's it's not too aggressive at all. I'm going to grab some of that. Okay, now we'll wipe that off. And we'll clean up the O-ring here a little bit. I'm going to reuse this O-ring. It looked like it was in good shape. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time, clean it up. Then I'll put a little petroleum jelly on it and put that on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move the oil out of the way. I'm going to lower the base down, reposition my chains on the other side so I can have the bottom end up. I'll clean the top of it. It's been sitting for about 2 hours now. All the oil is drained out of it. So what I'm going to do now is flip it around and put the cap back on after I fill it up with oil. Before I tip it up, so this end here is up in the air for refilling with oil, what I want to do is clean this right now while it's down in this position. You know, thinking about gravity, I don't want anything falling inside this exciter housing, so I'm going to clean it as best I can right now while it's down in this position. Then I'll lift it up to fill it with oil and put the cap back on. So what I noticed is this buildup on the ridge here where the O-ring is going to go, and what I want to do is I'm gonna end up cleaning that up really good. A little bit of a buildup on there, and so I want to clean that up really good. So I packed the exciter with some rags here so I don't get any of this crap inside. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean all around this ridge here. This is where the O-ring will be setting up against. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fill up this measuring cup with 5 ounces of this gear oil. Now, the measuring cup came right from the kitchen, so this is our secret. Don't tell my wife. But this is one way to get a good accurate measure. And right about there. And I'll just let that sit there, and make sure we get all the oil in there. Alright, so one thing to look for. This is your vent. I had this straight up and down when I was filling it. You want to put it at a bit of an angle so that the oil doesn't start coming out the vent. What I'm going to do is go back and install a tad more oil in here. I don't think I lost half an ounce. So it stopped leaking out the vent, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, like I said, I'm going to take the cap off, add a little bit more oil in, and we should be good to go. So there's the cap. It's off. Alright, cap going back on. Okay. Well, I wasn't expecting that, but you know, it's like a differential in a car. They have a vent. I guess it's the same principle, right? You have to allow the pressure to be released. Okay, I've got this torqued down. What I did was, you know, obviously you go around in a pattern slowly. 22 foot-pounds is what they recommend to torque these Allen bolts down to. I also, like I said, I cleaned up the threads and I put some blue Loctite on the threads. Okay, we're putting the water bar back on. A couple of these holes in here were clogged up, so what I did was I went through with a small drill bit and just manually pushed it through, cleaned everything up, make sure it was working good. And now I've got a little bit of Loctite. There's Loctite on these screws, and that's how it's going back down. Okay, so I'm putting the top plate on now. Have to make sure that the water line is coming through this hole over there. And I'm going to put the 4 bolts in. This attaches the top to the bottom plate. There we go. And number 4. So you can see, before I painted this, I cleaned everything, but I also masked off all the holes so I don't get any paint in there and cause any unnecessary stress on the bolts when they're going together. Okay, so the first test was good. I ran the motor, ran pretty good. I don't know if any of you people are aware, I'm sure some of you people are aware of this, but maybe not all of you. There's a little notch cut right on this starter cup right here. I don't have the starter. This didn't come with the starter, but you can actually wrap a rope around, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times, and you can use that to pull the engine over to start it. So, you know, I banged some dents out of the gas can here, the heat shield that goes over the muffler, straightened that out, painted everything up. When I started it up, I started to get some smoke, but it was actually smoke burning off of the, it was just the paint burning off on the muffler. So it ran pretty good. So I've got to get a couple things. I've got to get a new V-belt. That's on order right now. And I still got a little more painting to do, just basically the handle. And fix the valve. The valve on the water tank was stuck. I'm not sure what's up with that. I haven't even looked at it yet. But so far, so good. Okay. Put the belt on. So as I put the belt on here, I'm looking for about a 1/2 inch of deflection, and I think once I get this tightened up, we're going to have that. This is a 13 millimeter by 725 millimeter belt. Alright guys, what I'm finding is this pick point here in bracket, you know, it's real tight. Putting in this water can, taking the water can out, putting it back in, it's in there very, very tight. And I think what I'm finding is that if you drop straight down, if you put the water can into place, hold it by hand, you know, I should probably tie it in there, and I'm finding that it looks like dropping straight down, coming straight down. I've got this on a chain fall here, and it looks to me like that's going to do it to get this back together. It's a little tricky. Yeah, that seems to be the trick, okay? Coming straight up and down with this bracket with the water can in place. That has to come out and go back in with the bracket. I also had to take off the muffler. Alright, so as I reassemble this, I'm using Never Sees on a lot of these bolts. The bolts are screwing into an aluminum thread. I've had boats in the past and it's nothing but problems. So I'm going to use Never Sees, even though it's it might not be recommended. It's the way I put things back together, especially when I've got dissimilar metals. This looks like stainless steel going into a aluminum housing. Okay, there's a couple other things I did to this compactor to get it ready to go. I had to buy a new recoil starter for it. Down here, this ball valve for the water tank had to be basically taken apart, cleaned out, put back together. Put in a new air cleaner housing over here because I didn't have the top. It's the new housing was called a Cyclone, and it was really hard to get parts for it. So I just bought the old basic. Yeah, I don't think there's any difference at all, to be honest. I think they just change it up every once in a while. So I put on a new air cleaner housing and filter in here and a new spark plug down there. When I put the spark plug in, I always put a little bit of Never Sees on it. You're putting steel into aluminum. And so now I'm just going to give it a test. I put some gas in there. I've got some additives in the gas. I've got some sea foam, a little bit of stable in there. And what I'll do is after I get done running this thing, I'll shut off the gas, run the carburetor bowl dry, and just let it run out of gas basically. I'm going to tell you something. This is what I really like about these Honda motors. I'm going to put the gas on, pull the choke over. I'm going to throttle down. Give it a second for the bowl to fill. This machine runs awesome. Okay, I've already done a test run on it. This was a cold start right now, by the way. I didn't heat it up or anything like that. Start straight up, effortless. run the bowl dry. So I'm going to shut off the gas. And I'll just let it sit here until it runs out of gas. So I hope you got some useful information on how to repair your Wacker Neuson WP1550 from this video. Until next time, it's Cladkeeper signing out.